Hey, this is Ernie.
Hey, this is JJ. We're an Idle Threat.
You're listening to the KingdomCore Podcast.
So I let go. I lose your control.
Dude, bro, do you even lift?
His name on high.
Okay. Man.
Hey guys, it's Sean. Welcome back to the KingdomCore Podcast. Got Chris here with me.
Yo.
And what was that? Oh man.
Just keep trucking.
Just keep trucking.
I can say that now.
Oh yeah. I was gonna keep going, but that's too much. All right, let's try this again. We just got done. We just finished an interview with Idle Threat. If you guys are unfamiliar with them, they are I guess you could call them a post-hardcore band, maybe, for lack of better.
Yeah.
Post-hardcore band from the Nashville area. They released their debut LP on Tooth and Nail Records back in late fall last year called Blurred Visions, and it was my 2021 album of the year. Just an absolutely phenomenal record. So if you guys haven't heard it yet, either listen to this interview and then go listen to it, or listen to the record before this interview.
Yeah, you were fanboying the whole time. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, it was such a good interview. We talked a lot about the album, some funny tour stories. Actually, one really good one. The album artwork and just some future plans with the band. It was a good time.
It was a good time to also talk about faith, lyrics, just all that stuff, all the normal stuff on the KingdomCore Podcast. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our boys Gary and Tyler in the All-Star Podcast. If this was not enough Idle Threat or not enough about Blurred Visions, they have done a really great interview with Zeke and Ernie from Idle Threat. This interview was with their drummer JJ, and then also Ernie. And they did an extremely deep, or a very, very in-depth deep dive into the album. I believe
every song.
I believe it was a two-part episode. They did 45 minutes about the band and their journey, and then they did like another hour, just literally track by track, pretty much lyric. So big shout out to them. Great episode, and we hope you guys enjoy this one. Sweet. So thank you guys for coming on. We've been looking forward to this. Thanks for making time. Would you guys mind introducing yourselves to those who are listening?
Okay, I'll go first.
I feel like we'll switch off. So you go first this time. I'll go first the next time. We'll do we'll be in sync. We got this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my name is. I am the guitar and heavy vocals for the band Idle Threat.
That was great, man. That was great. He's got a great set of hair too. He kind of looks like Jeremy from The Devil Wears Prada right now, and he's got a mean
dude. I was gonna say you look like Ryan Kirby. Has anyone ever told you that?
What's that?
Maybe
I was gonna say Ryan Kirby.
Oh yeah, I'll take that.
Oh,
too.
Dude, you do. Yep, you do.
It's a mix of Ryan and Jeremy, like dead on.
Incredible. I'm gonna call you that for like the next week, so I hope you know.
I'll take it.
But yeah, I'm Justin. I go by JJ, I guess. So I play drums, and that's about it. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
No yelling or anything for me.
How long has Idle Threat been a band? When did you guys form? How'd that come about?
So we formed it was kind of like a converging of two different roads, but so from my perspective, in 2014, Zeke and I had been kind of just getting together and playing like Fall Out Boy covers and stuff together, like in my parents' basement, and we always kind of wanted to be like, a band and like actually try to do it, and we never really like made those stars align until Ernie came along. So, and he can give a way better story.
Yeah. So from like my perspective, while that's going on, I grew up going to shows and stuff, and I had been in and out of bands all through high school. But finally got to the, I was at that point, I graduated high school, and my usual crew that I would play music with moved on to do other things. And so I met Zeke on the church worship group band, and we just kind of hit it off because we would both just play like riffs of bands that we liked. And so not a lot of people even recognized what those riffs were, but let alone like actually liked those bands. And so we became friends. And then I was like, hey man, like if you ever want to get together and write, we can. And so we did, and we started writing some stuff. And then we got to that point where it's like, hey, we've got a batch of like ideas. We just need a drummer. And that's when he was like, well, I actually play drum, or actually get together with my friend JJ. And so I'm skipping some stuff because we also like started this like fake band because we wanted to play this like local venue that it was called Headache House. And they always had like the just gnarliest named bands that played there.
What was your guys' band name? This fake band?
Yeah. Our band was called Fecal Matters. And,
there you go. You guys play grindcore?
we were trying to like the heaviest stuff we could come up with and play one show. That's all we wanted to do. And then we couldn't even get that together because the drummer that we used at the time, he was one of my old bandmates, and he was just like super flaky. So it didn't end up happening. And that's when I was like, well, I still want to do this. And he connected all of us together. And I went over to JJ's house one day, and the rest is history. So we've been going ever since that point. That was what, 2014, or was it earlier than that?
Yeah, it was like the fall of 2014.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then you guys got a much better band name.
Yeah. I still do, one day we'll do like a Fecal Matters, like just one-off.
Maybe you guys could fit that into your Furnace Fest set. So what does the name Idle Threat mean? I've always been curious. Is there, first off, many people were asked, when I told people I know about this interview, they're like, ask them if it has anything to do with Minor Threat. So I wanted to ask that first.
Yeah, so I'm the one that essentially came up with the name.
Okay.
And I think early on when I would do like interviews and stuff, I always said like, yeah, like, there definitely had something to do with like Minor Threat, or like that was like, in my mind. But honestly, like now that I'm so far removed from when we actually named the band, like I don't think it really means anything. Like I think we just kind of named, and like I do remember like listening to so Josh Scoggin had just like left the Chariot and started 68, and he had a song off of was it In Humor and Sadness or something, and one of the lyrics said something about like idle hands, the devil's cup, or something. Was, I could be butchering that, but like that word idle just kind of stuck out. So I do know like that was an inspiration. So I think I just heard the word idle and thought, oh, idle threat, like, making a threat that doesn't have much, backing behind it. So yeah, but ultimately like it has no like real deep meaning to it.
Gotcha. Is there any meaning behind the all lowercase in Idle Threat?
Yeah, so that actually, it's like an aesthetic thing. So that was one of those attempts that, when we did the record, we kind of wanted to do like a little bit of change anyway. But it actually spurred from like me trying to be like, okay, like we're gonna create this like visual that goes with like our name, because we've had so many issues like with like our name, and that really comes from the fact that there is an Idle Threat that existed in the 80s in New York.
Okay.
I don't really know if we got hit with like, or it was more of like a threatening, like to hit us with a lawsuit thing. But
was it an idle threat?
It actually was.
Oh man, that's a load of Finkel Matters.
Yeah, but they were like, hey, these guys like are taking our name, and we were like, let's get with like a lawyer. So we ended up like adding a period. So that's why for the longest time we were like Idle Threat period. And then when we were signing to Tooth and Nail, I was like, guys, like let's drop the period and like just do all lowercase everything. So we kind of shifted into a new era of like, you know, trying to change up like how the band like, you know, looks, at least with like the name and like the logo and like the song
Yeah.
titles and stuff like that.
I would also say, like, with each like installment of the name, whether it be like the original or the period or now it's lowercase, like I think it came at like a good time in terms of like where we were going with the band. Like I do really attribute those as like different eras of the band. You know, at first we were just kind of figuring out what we wanted to sound like. There was no real like direction. We just kind of wanted to write music, and honestly, like a lot of that stuff we don't like and we don't play. And so once we hit the period, once we put that on there, it was like, this is like, we had become a little bit more established as what we want to sound like. And then obviously just dropping it and going lowercase, like we're still evolving, but like we've come into who we think we are and who we're going to sound like. And, you know, that's the direction that we're going to continue going from here on out.
I think you guys found a good spot for the sound.
Yeah.
And speaking of your journey and the different segments, like how did Tooth and Nail come into the conversation? Where did that whole story start?
Yeah, so we put out a record called Grown Tired back in like 2016. JJ's he knows all the dates. So
yes, it is 2016. I have it on Spotify.
So 2016, we put this record out, and we toured on that bad boy for way too long. Like, probably like
2020.
Yeah, I mean, roughly, because we had actually kind of stopped to actually write "Nothing Is Broken for Good," and so once we had "Nothing Is Broken for Good" like written and honestly even recorded already, we knew we had like a special batch of songs, and so we decided like, hey, let's like pitch this to labels, and what does that even look like in 2019 at the time?
Right.
Do you still mail it in? Is it just an email? Like, how do we go about doing this? So we just like basically cold emailed a bunch of labels, and the only one that got back with us was Tooth and Nail, and they did it within like less than like 24 hours, and we're just like, hey, like you're a band that we've kind of been looking for, like something to sound like this.
Okay.
So, maybe it was just like right time, right place, and so yeah, that's where Tooth and Nail. I mean, we all grew up on Tooth and Nail, so like it was definitely at the top of our list of one that we'd like to land. But it was essentially just a, hey, like, what do you think of these songs? We didn't send them all; we just sent a couple, and they seemed to dig them enough to pick it up. So that's where
Boy, did we fool them!
Yeah.
That's great. So kind of take us through your guys' metal journey or like heavy music journeys.
So also sorry that I sound like a prepubescent boy. I went to a Nashville soccer club game last night and lost my voice. So
all good.
But I got into it pretty early actually. So my dad, he like loved playing drums and like grew up like, in the golden era of music and stuff like that. So my favorite bands when I was like younger, it was like, your classics like Metallica and Rush and AC/DC and like all of them. And, once I started to like kind of, be a young little buck, I got into, bands like August Burns Red and like As Lay Dying and all of them like on my own. And I'll go ahead and mention like my dad, he's a preacher, and like we would go to these like youth conferences and stuff, and there was always these little like CD booths and stuff. And some of the first like CDs that I bought like with my own money were As Lay Dying's Frail Words Collapse, and then August Burns Red's Thrill Seeker. And I was like 10 or whatever, and I saw them and I was like, dude, these have skulls on them, and like, this is like metal music and stuff, and best decisions I've like ever made, so that's where it all started for me. But then I also had an older sister, and she would drag me to shows like all the time. So God bless Rocket Town in Nashville and what it used to be. but you know, I was there probably like every weekend from the time I was like 14 to like, you know, younger 20s. So yeah, that's really
That's cool.
how I got into it. And you know, it's taken me places that I never thought I would go. And that's the short and
Mm,
sweet on that. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
What about you, Ernie?
Yeah, I guess I had a little bit of a different route. I wasn't even really into rock music at all until probably middle school.
Okay.
Before that, I was like just like hip hop, rap. Like that was pretty much it. Um, and then I liked like some of like the radio stuff at the time.
Mm,
But then when I was in the sixth grade, actually, I always say that like for me, 2006 was like the most impactful time in my life because at that time, or the summer of that year, I got saved, and it was also the summer I was introduced to heavy music. And so I made a pretty like big jump into the genre because I had a friend actually. It was all for full circle because like I mentioned that venue that we wanted to play. Well, the guy's house was the guy who actually got me into heavy music in the first place. So like our town isn't that big, so it's really, you know, kind of a small world. But like we were on the track and field team together, and just like one day in the locker room, he was like, "You ever listen to this band?" And I was like, "No." And so he showed me like Under Oath, Me Without You, Norma Jean, just that whole post-hardcore kind of world. And I hated it. It sounded horrible. But he was cool to me and still is cool to me. And I always think that he's like just such a good dude. And I have a special place for him in my heart. But I just kind of stuck with it until I finally like liked it.
Mhm.
Also, it was like the golden age of like illegally downloading music with LimeWire. So I had, you know, before Spotify, like you had to wait for stuff or like find it on YouTube, but or you could do it like me and just get all these horrible versions of it that are like crappily recorded onto the computer. And so I would just like find stuff and honestly, like a lot of that stuff was not good, but like I was like forcing myself to like it. And then some stuff kind of stood the test of time, and I still love it to this day. Like I still love Under Oath. I still love Me Without You. Is still my favorite band. So like a lot of that stuff like had to me like had some really good value to it and was really well done back then for it to still be like, you know, relevant today. And so yeah, it was just sort of a big jump, but eventually like after sticking with it long enough, like I grew to love it, and I still love hip hop. I still love, you know, folk. I like all kinds of stuff, but like I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing certainly if it weren't for that one guy who I thought was cool and looked up to. You know,
That's awesome. And so, I guess next question is, who's Idle Threat's biggest influence? Do you guys have? Because you mentioned Me Without You, Under Oath, Norma Jean. Like, I definitely can hear some Me Without You, definitely some Norma Jean. I was telling Chris before this, like, I would bet money that As Cities Burn has been an influence. Like, I could hear that throughout.
sure, yeah. I think so. We all have like different kind of inspirations that brought us to this point. Ironically enough, As Cities Burn is not really one of the top dogs. It's
For you or for the band?
for the band, like across the board.
Wow,
Like,
okay.
none of us were like super. I do like As Cities Burn. I do like they have several records that, you know, I own. But I got into them late, like after we had already been doing what we've been doing. So
Okay.
they weren't so much like a huge inspiration. Like I guess for us, like if you were to like unanimously pick a band, it would probably be bands like Under Oath. But we never really tried to be like anything other than just like, hey, let's like write what we like. So for me, like my favorites are, you know, Me Without You. I love Manchester Orchestra.
Oh yes.
You know, like those are like people that I draw from. I like Thrice. You know, there's bands that I draw from for sure. Zeke was more on like the pop punk side, like coming into it from like a Mayday Parade was like one of his favorites, and like
Oh, okay.
yeah, like the Wonder Years and stuff like that. So his lens is like, and I think it comes out. I mean, clearly, like I'm the one that screams, he's the one that sings. Although he's started to do some more yelling lately, but like, I think you can kind of hear where that clear like path is, or those two roads. And then, JJ, I'll let you speak on this, but he's sort of been more into like the heavier stuff for sure.
Yeah, so I think just to reiterate, all of us have different like varieties of music that we're into, and all of us are very universal with our music tastes. But I think where we draw inspiration is very like different. And like for me, I'm definitely wired more for like live music. I definitely prefer playing like shows and stuff rather than like writing, but I think that's why I fell in love with like drummers like I always reference David Kennedy from The Chariot, and then Andy Hurley from Fall Out Boy. Those are probably my two biggest influences behind the drum set. But like I also I always reference like Elvis Presley because Elvis is probably my favorite entertainer of all time. And it's mostly because he was an entertainer. Like when you went to an Elvis show, like you were just totally captivated by his voice and like the music, but also like the dude could shake it and like command a crowd and like all that. So, and that's just how I'm wired. Like, Ernie and I have joked before, like whenever we play shows and stuff, like, yeah, we're playing our music, but also like, I want people there to like have fun and like engage with us. And like, we're going to go out and do our thing. And like, Ernie kind of dances around sometimes and he's fun to watch. And like, I'm kind of notorious for just kind of hitting really hard. So people bring that up a lot too. And, if we're an entertaining band to watch, that's what I want to be, because that's where I draw influence from. So yeah, that's my scope on it. I mean, I hope that all of that like bleeds through and people like see and hear that. But our influences definitely come from different places, and I think that's why our band works so well together, because we do have all these like outlets that we're pulling from.
And this might be jumping a little too far ahead, but something was just announced where people can go see you guys play soon, right?
Yeah.
Labeled Fest. Yeah. That sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, so we're
congrats,
actually hitting
guys.
the road. Yeah, thank you. I don't know when this will like air or whatever, but we're actually hitting the road next week. We're doing our LP. We're doing like the part 2 tour. So we're going like up to New York and back, playing a couple like Midwest shows and stuff. It's gonna be sick. We're taking out the Tooth and Nail band, Make Sure, and then our local friends in Distend. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then this summer we're doing Label Fest, and that'll be an absolute blast. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So I just hope people come see us. Like we've never been to the West Coast before, so farthest west we've been is Texas, right, Ernie?
Yeah, that's it. So
oh wow,
we're on.
Yeah.
So and to make it clear, because I know the flyer has been confusing to some people, but we're on the east leg and the west coast. We're not, unfortunately, we're not doing the Texas run, but yeah, the other two were there.
That's so sick. Are you guys gonna? I mean, obviously, this probably isn't up to you, but do you guys think Corey will be able to do those guest vocals on Driftwood?
We're gonna ask. I mean, we'll ask him if he's interested in doing it. I mean, it's pretty cool to get to know those guys and like, I don't know. We'll see. That would be very sick.
I think I've called Corey old or old man too much to where he'll do anything for us anymore. But we'll see.
That's awesome. I guess that's a perfect segue into Blurred Visions, starting off with Driftwood. Do you guys want to just take us through like the main themes of the album, what the inspiration was, and the name of the album, how that all came to be? Because you guys signed with Tooth and Nail in, I think, 2018, 2019. You wrote Nothing Is Broken for Good, and then it was like not even a year later, or maybe like a year and a half later, you dropped Blurred Visions.
Yeah, that's right. So Blurred Visions ultimately is just about like this idea that we do not have control over our lives, over our circumstances. Things happen, and coincidentally, a pandemic happened. That we didn't write it from that perspective, but that that is one example of kind of what we were talking about. But though things, though we don't have this control, like we personally believe that God is in control, and that control is much better than us if it were left up to us to have control. And so the record comes out of Nothing Is Broken for Good because, well, even that, like that record was sort of like meant to be like a parallel to the. Hello, my wife is on camera.
I'm sorry.
At some point, that was going to happen.
That was great.
So, anyways, so we'll say this is the starting point. Nothing Is Broken for Good was sort of meant as a parallel to Grown Tired, in that Grown Tired is sort of like this like apathetic, like kind of negative view of kind of where we're at with like church, and like just like it was just kind of more of a negative perspective, and then Nothing Is Broken for Good was meant to be like that positive side of it. And so when we were writing Blurred Visions, we wanted to write kind of all perspective coming into it. So like the negative being like we're not in control, but the positive being that that's actually a good thing. And so, yeah. So most of the songs hit on different elements of like control, like whether it be time, like The Gold Grows Dim is sort of like this time just keeps moving, and we don't have any control over that. We think about things in the past, and like whether it be fond memories or things that you regret, and then we also look to the future for things we're looking forward, but like really the best is like right now, being in the present. Then just like there's elements of loss, like losing people that you love, and that being like something you can't control. And so yeah, that's just like kind of where we went through. We definitely didn't like intend for it to just be like this one big like thematic album where we're not trying to tell a story or necessarily any of that. It's just like that's kind of where we were at that time, with a lot of feeling like control is something everybody wants, but like it's not real. It's like you just can't it's not a realistic expectation. So yeah, that was kind of. What was your perspective, Mr. Jones?
I think it's funny because like normally I would kind of deflect and just be like, oh, I just hit stuff. Like I really, I don't know. But I think there is something that it was a very like transitory part of my life when we went to make that record. So I had actually been a preschool teacher, if you can believe that or not, for
That's
the
cool.
prior like 7 years. And I quit that school. There's a bigger story behind this, but I basically quit that job to like go make this record. And while we were there, it was just like I had just started like a bachelor's program, and like all that jazz. But I was like working towards all these things, like moving out of like the past into like a new era chapter of my life, whatever you want to call it. And for me, like I've always been like really into trying to control like my own like outlets and stuff. And obviously there's a lot of different like ways that I can bring that up, but I'm not trying to bore y'all. But so that period of time in my life was like, man, like we're writing this record and I get to like kind of sit down and like actually let go of just a lot of things, like whether that be prior like jobs, relationships, whatever. And I just had a month to make music with everybody. And you know I told this story the other day, but like the day that I finished tracking drums, I actually went and sat down by the lake, and I had a little, bottle of scotch, and I got a nice cigar, and I was just like totally at peace, just sitting there reading a book. Like, I had just finished tracking our record, and it was incredible. And like, that was something small that I could control, like in the moment, but having all those like, struggles with trying to find things that I could control and things that I couldn't, it was something that I had to like process and learn. And then it was just really cool, like having that like parallel with like the record that we were making, and the bigger themes that go along with that as well. And being able to have that conversation with people that listen to it, and they're like, oh, like, I was struggling with this, and like, it's like, oh, me too, and this is something I can't control, but this is something I can control. So like, finding those ways to like have those conversations with people, and that opens up other conversations too. So sorry if that was long-winded, but
no, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Really cool. I keep everything you guys keep saying. It just the line from "No Turning Back" just keeps coming up in my mind. So I let go my illusion of control, and that's my favorite song on the album. I've said this online a lot. That was my favorite song of all of 2021. Like, that song means so much to me personally, as someone who has struggled with anxiety for the last 7-8 years. It's like become one of my anti-anxiety anthems. I have a list of songs that I listen to when to kind of bring me out of that fear when I'm anxious, when I want control, when something's not going my way. So I really just want to thank you guys for pouring out your hearts and souls into that song, into this album. But even more so, could you take us through that song?
Yeah. So yeah, that's really cool that you say that, because like also like that was like a huge thing that I was dealing with that last year was anxiety. I've had anxiety in my life a couple times, and so like I've always had it, but it's like manifested even more certain time periods of my life. It got to the point where like it was like affecting my marriage, and like so for me personally, like I saw a therapist for it and stuff, and like that helped, and it helped me clear up to be able to write about it from that perspective. And so actually Safety in the Shade is actually my anxiety story.
Okay.
That song is actually about me like dealing with anxiety last year. And so the idea of, and I know you mentioned No Turning Back, and I'll get to that, but like
all
like,
good.
But like anxiety, like they just like made me think about this song, because like that song is literally about me like realizing that like the best way for me to get through the anxiety was to like face it head on and not run. And so No Turning Back though is sort of like the reason we put it last also was because it is such a good recap really of the whole record. Like it kind of is like the main point. And I think, like, if you only hear one song from the record and you want to know what the record's about, like, that's the one. So, that song is just, I mean, I feel like it's pretty straightforward for the most part. It's probably the most straightforward to me on the record, because it is just this idea of, like, we just are so, like, close-fisted with our life, like, trying to make it all perfect fit into a certain way. And then when things don't go our way, it causes us to kind of spiral or go down not the most healthy mindsets, right? And so it's coming to that realization that like I'm going to just give up, like not give up life, but give up that desire for control and trust ultimately that God is going to pick me up and carry me where I'm supposed to go. And so, yeah, just like, the main chorus is I let go my illusion of control, right? It's like, I think I've got it, but it's not there. It's not real. And so, but then it talks about being, swept up in the clouds and, being like, just like, basically, like I said, just kind of carried, in the comfort of Christ and knowing what he did. And, not that makes life easier, but it certainly helps comfort the mind, you know.
You were talking about Safety in the Shade being about anxiety. I was just listening to this album like an hour before this, and I was reading the lyrics of that song, and I was like, is this about Jonah? Is there anything relating to the book of Jonah in there when he's got the cursed tree and the shade?
Yeah,
Or,
no, it's
no?
not.
Okay.
It's literally just like for me specifically, my anxiety had to do with like heat, like being overheated and stuff like that, and it has caused me like physical like. So it's one that like people like. There's no way you would know like what that song is about, and so I love to hear like what people think it's about, because it's like, hey, if that's what it's about to you, cool. Like, but I can tell you like there's actual literal meaning behind it, and like Safety in the Shade. Literally, like I think like if I could just get under that shade, like I'll feel good. When like that's not true. Like the shade will move, and then I'll have to keep moving. So it's just all instead. I just need to face it head on and just like deal with the anxiety rather than trying to medicate it. Yeah.
Now there is another song on the album that's my personal favorite that I believe is referencing a Bible story, and that's Simon. Is that correct? Or is there some other background stuff? Is there like a personal aspect to you guys? Or is that just straight up kind of like Peter's reflection of what Christ did?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I know I'm talking more than JJ here, but we wrote the lyrics.
You write the lyrics. Yeah.
JJ, how did it feel to bang drums on that song?
Yeah, that one Tom. Yeah, how'd you do that, man?
Actually, okay, so I'll tell a quick story. So when we were recording Simon, we wanted to have a song on the record that wasn't like the rest of like our tunes. So we were gonna do this like slow song or whatever. And at first, like, you know, we're doing like a little slow part. We had it coming out of oh gosh, I should know. It comes out of Arrogant Love.
Yes.
Okay, good. When we were like writing it, you know, I'm bored to tears like in the drum room. But when we ended up like, you know, putting the pen to paper there, we ended up getting this giant like concert like bass drum, and I had to track each of the parts like separately because I was playing like a hi-hat at one point, but also like a different snare across the room. And then also I was sitting in the floor having to hit this concert drum. It was so much fun actually to like piece together. And I mean, it's like a simple like part, cool. But yeah, that's all I have to offer. I think like hearing the final version of that song was really cool though, because I remember, you know, I didn't really know going into it what it was gonna really even be about, but I remember hearing the final version and being like, man, like, dude, Zeke knocked it out of the park with lyrics on this. And I give Ernie and Zeke a hard time all the time about their lyrics, but like, dude, Zeke absolutely killed it with these. So yeah. All right, now skip Ernie and we'll move on to another question.
Yeah, I'll just say you're right. It is like, I mean, it's just about Peter's perspective. But I mean, I can't really take much credit for the writing of the lyrics on that one because, in full disclosure, we got to the studio and didn't have very many lyrics for our songs, and we had a month to try to figure it out. And so there was some times where we kind of did the divide and conquer thing, and Zeke would go and take a song and work on it throughout the day, and I would take a totally different song and go right. And that was one that he had been, well, I mean, honestly, like some songs come together like really slow and it takes time, but that was one that he says he just like started writing and it just sort of like divinely started coming out. Like he just he just kept writing and writing, and it was really, really quick for him, honestly. And I remember he brought me not the final version, but like mostly there, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And played it for me, and he sang it, and like I like teared up, and I was like,
it's
like, man,
it's a really
like,
beautiful song.
Yeah, was like, this is really good. And JJ gives us a hard time, but I also give Zeke a hard time. Like, I'm more of the let's try to say this as poetic as possible, to the point where it's like borderline has no meaning. And that kind of band. But Zeke was more on the more straightforward for a long time, and he's become more poetic, which is, to me, I just think it's more creative to do it that way sometimes. And so I can tend to be like kind of difficult and be like, man, that what you're saying is so lame. Like, don't say that, But this was one that he brought to me, and I was like, that's it, man. Like, I don't have anything to say. And then in the studio, we tweaked like just a couple phrases, but like for the most part, like what he presented is what ended up on. I think it's seriously, like, I wouldn't change anything about it. It's great.
Yeah, that's it. It's weird because for people who know me and my musical taste, I'm like, with bands like yours specifically, I really like the heavy stuff.
Sure.
But I was talking to Sean before this, and like Simon, I'm like, this is my favorite song off the album. But like my second favorite song would probably have to be Beige, which is also like the other like softer song. And it's weird because like you guys do heavy very well, but like there's just something, at least with my listening, that the light stuff that you guys do just clicks, and it's just, yeah, it's so good.
Cool.
That's awesome. So I wanted to, before this, I went on the Labeled Podcast group on Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm interviewing Idle Threat in an hour. Does anyone have any questions? And I haven't checked it, so I want to see what questions
Should we be
there
scared?
might be. No, I should be the one scared. They said, here's a good one. Favorite song you guys have written?
Mine, I bounce back and forth. It's either Driftwood or Safety in the Shade. Those are really fun to write. They're really fun to play. So those are mine.
Yeah, I would say, ooh, that's hard to choose. I guess I really like The Gold Grows Dim a lot. And then Safety in the Shade, which is just because I get a cool mosh call at the end, so that's pretty rare.
Oh, so I love that part. That part is so sick. Let's see. Someone
Craziest
said
tour story.
Yes, that's a good one.
Oh, craziest tour story. Okay, we have a ton of them. We're like pretty. I don't know. I feel like at least within other bands that we've toured with, like, we're pretty notorious for having just the worst luck.
Oh no!
Several flat tires. Just being stuck on the side of the road at like 4 a.m, things like that. But I'd say, like, for me, like, one of the worst. Oh, there's so many. Okay, I'm gonna pick one. We played in Pittsburgh one summer. We played Pittsburgh and then decided we didn't have anywhere to stay. So the band that we were on tour with at the time put out like a Facebook post and said, like, hey, like, we're playing Syracuse the next day. Like, is there anywhere between here and there that can put us up? And so we got some hits, and there used to be this band called Bungler, and they basically were like, hey, like, we've got a couple places that we can kind of, the tour party was pretty big, so like all of us couldn't stay in one house, so they had to split us up. Well, the band we were on tour with went one house, we went to another, and we pull up at like 2 a.m. I'm getting messages from the guy that we're staying with, and he has, I can't remember his name, but we'll just say it's like Alex or something like that. And when we pull up, though, I text him, say, hey, we're out front. He comes out and introduces himself as something totally different. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, you're staying here with me. So we go in his house, and it is super nice. Like, you try not to, like, stereotype or anything like that, but you're just like, you're like kind of the same age as me, like, man, what do you do for a living? You know, like, house. And so he's like talking to us. He's super New York, like just like, you know, cussing every other word. And like, he's like, yeah, you're going to stay here. Well, at this time, his roommates come out. He has 2 roommates, and they're clearly on something. And they're asking us questions like, you know, well, what kind of gear do you have? And they're like creepily like peeking through the blinds, like looking at our van out front. And we just got this weird vibe, like super crazy. And then also like a girl comes out of Alex's room and like gets a slice of pizza or something from the fridge. And anyways, we find out like that's not his girlfriend, and it's just like this just kind of weird vibe the whole time. So anyways, we ask him if he wants to get wings with us the next day, and he's like, oh, I can't, like, with what I do, like, I never know when someone needs me. So we figured out pretty much that he was a drug dealer, and we just felt super uneasy with his roommates. And so in the middle of the night, like, it was like, again, we got there like 2, so 2 hours at least passed. We like text each other. We're super quiet, and we just everybody's phones light up because they all have their phone in their hand, and like I can see everyone's face in the room, and they're just like, "Y'all want to get out of here?" And we're like, "Yeah." So we pack up quietly. We don't say anything to him, and we just leave, and we drive to Niagara Falls because we were going to see it the next day, anyways. And we slept in a Tim Hortons parking lot, and then we saw Niagara Falls at sunrise, and it was really cool, but it was such a long night, and we should have just like got a hotel probably or something. But
jeez,
yeah.
I mean, hey, Tim Hortons is a good way. You know, you can go get some coffee and donuts in the morning or something.
Yeah, we could have ended up like with our stuff stolen, but
yeah, no, I almost thought that was going somewhere. Like they were, they like bait bands to come stay with them, and then they like steal all their gear in the middle of the night or something.
Oh no, someone stole your gear.
Yeah, right here in the living room.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Another good question. Someone asked, how did Zeke get so good looking?
I disagree.
He got beat up too many times, and that's just what he looks like now. So like, actually, good looking.
Yikes! Alrighty. So, oh, that was good. So, kind of jumping back into Blurred Visions and your guys' sound. I wanted to ask, can you explain the dichotomy, Ernie, between your scream vocals and Zeke's clean vocals, how that plays into the writing process? We had Steve from Wolves on the Gate a few episodes ago, and I kind of asked him, like, between him and Nick, are there times when you write a song when you're like, oh, I need to write a part for Zeke, or Zeke's writing and, oh, I need to write a part for Ernie, or does it all just kind of come together naturally like that?
Yeah, I think in the past we were definitely more so like, hey, we both have to be represented on every song. But we've kind of landed, I mean, Blurred Visions has several songs that I'm not even on vocally. And, you know, I think there are also some songs on there where he's there, but like it definitely is more of me. And so we've kind of landed we've always said, not that we've always followed this rule, but we've always said that like we want to do what's best for the song, or what we believe to be best for the song. And so a lot of the times what ends up happening is like we just kind of hear it in the song, like as we're writing, because we don't normally write like lyrics or vocals until the riffs and the song has kind of been established. And so when that happens, like we'll just kind of listen to the instrumentals over and over again, and then like we can just kind of hear it. And a lot of times we agree on, hey, yeah, this would be cool if this is you, and this would be cool if this is me, and this would be awesome if it was both of us, and some sort of overlap, or, you know, staggered, however that needs to be. But a lot of the times it is more natural, and it is just kind of what we're feeling. And then this with this record, we actually worked with a producer, and so that's a whole nother level, of like, hey, I think this isn't working. Let's try something else, or let's see if Zeke does this part, or even Nathan, who is like a touring member of ours, like he was actually there to help with the record, and so we had him lay down some vocals. So no one's really like stuck on having their voice heard, which I know not all bands work that way. But we definitely, if the part sounds better with me screaming, then we're going to go with that. And I do appreciate that about our band, because I have seen interviews and stuff from other bands where like they argue and butt heads over because they have that lead singer syndrome, and I don't think we necessarily.
Yeah, and then there's Justin over here. He's like, "Give me a drum solo."
Yeah.
No, it's just they're scared to give me a mic. You don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. So
can you sing / scream?
No.
Like,
not enough.
We'd like to remain signed to tooth and nail and not get.
Great answer. Oh, that's great.
that's so good.
Oh, Chris. Yeah, there's a question you always ask that you haven't asked yet that is reflective of your page.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking that's where you're going with. Yeah, one of the main features of the page that I run for the Rock is very visual driven, and so I always like to ask bands about the album artwork, if there's any specific cool stories about it, like how it came to be, any meaning in it. It's really great artwork. Yeah, who did it? I love the colors on it. Like,
yes, so good.
The blue green is just like it's chef's kiss.
It really adds to the listening experience, for real.
Yeah.
So at least to give a preliminary answer, that actually is like my favorite color. And it was kind of a funny coincidence, but that's the color of my current drum set, actually. When we were looking through what we were presented for the album artwork, we went through, I don't know how many photos, but that was the one that, I'll speak from a personal level. Like, that was the one that I was drawn to the most. And I'm biased because it is my favorite color. But like, I think, and Ernie, I'll be honest, I don't remember their name, but the person that did these for us, like when they sent those over, I was like, okay, like this one's my favorite one, and I think that they had listened to the record. So, having someone that like took the time to be able to put all those things together, it was kind of cool. That now on the other side of it, like this artwork does mean something to people when they listen to the record. And then we tried to roll out visuals with it as well. Like, we're using like the album art as like our backdrop for the past like, couple tours that we did. We'll probably keep it behind the merch table and stuff at upcoming tours and stuff like that. But it's really cool that it's like resonating with people. Our record is resonating with people on a visual level as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Did you get presented with like what type of images were they? Was it like photography, like a set from a photographer?
Yeah, so like essentially we just like were asked kind of what we would like the visual representation of the record to look like, and we sent out like kind of, we knew we wanted it to be like a photo. That was kind of like the initial guidance that we gave. It's like, hey, like a photo would be cool. If I'm not mistaken, though, like they sent us back probably like 6 or 7 ideas, and like none of them. Was this one even in that batch? Like I can't remember, but I remember having to give a little more direction, like being like, like we dig the stuff. Like there was one in particular that was close to what it ended up being, but I ended up being like, hey, like. I think what I had in mind was like a central image that was like blurry, and but the color that they were, I don't think we picked a color. Like that's just what they picked. And so once we gave them a little more guidance, then we got back some more, and that's when we saw the one, and we're like, yes. And I think we were pretty much unanimous. Like yeah, that's the one that we want. And it, you know, it is cool to hear that like you feel like it adds to the record because again, as like a fan of Me Without You and bands like that, like the visual aspect is intertwined with the listening experience for a lot of people, as I believe it should be because it is for me. And so I when I think of like iconic, you know, records, at least in our scene, you know, I think of Under Oaths, like They're Only Chasing Safety with that, you know, the girl's face with the breathing mask and like it. I can't separate the two of those anymore. Like I'm going to listen to that record, I'm going to see that image, and or vice versa. I'm going to see the image and I'm going to think of a song specifically off of that. And so I'm real big on, and hopefully moving forward, there will also be some sort of congruency maybe that you will know like, hey, that's an Idle Threat record. We've talked about that and you know, that comes up when you're actually writing the songs and what it needs to look like. But we definitely felt like that one that they sent to us. And I feel bad because I wish I remembered her name too.
I know.
I cannot remember it who did the work, but she did a great job and I would love to work with her again. It wasn't so much a thing where we like really had much contact with her. It was just kind of went through our A&R guy. And so that's kind of why we didn't really.
Was that Adam Scatula?
That's our A&R guy, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone loves Adam.
Yeah,
that's cool,
dude. But yeah, so like, yeah, it's just like really important that the album art has like a impact at least on the listener too, other than just the songs themselves.
Yeah, oh, it's so good.
That's really cool. I wanted to ask, kind of jumping into another gear, what impact does faith have on the band? I'm not sure if I'm not going to get into the whole, are you guys a Christian band? I'm not going to get into that, but we've talked about faith. We obviously, you listen to the lyrics, you see that there's believers in the band, that it comes from a place of faith. What, I guess, what importance or like how does faith influence you guys as a band?
Yeah, so, you know, people ask us all the time, you know, are y'all a Christian band? And, you know, I always say no, we're not, but we are, the main core of us are, you know, believers, Christians. So, you know, there are things that we do like in our personal lives that are going to bleed into the music that we play. But, you know, I guess from a drummer's perspective that does not have a microphone, it's just kind of like we get up on stage and we're going to play our music and like hopefully it connects with people on levels that they want to be able to come and meet us afterwards and talk about just life, you know. And then faith definitely plays into that, to where when we are connecting with people through the music or through, you know, personal relationship at shows or wherever, that those things will come up and we get to talk about it and, you know, share what we believe. So, and then it's always going to be like prevalent, like within the lyrics and stuff like that. And Ernie can expound on that more, but
yeah, I definitely, I will also say within that, like the three of us, that we, I mean, I know it's kind of confusing to some people, but like Idle Threat is a 3-piece band. Like there's three of us that are like the main members of the band. And then we have a touring member. And then we have a guy who just is at home. He has like a full-time job and can't do the tours. So, but he helps write too. So like we operate as a 3-piece, but we're really like a 5-piece, you know, the three of us in the band. And so when he says the core, he's talking about me, Zeke, and JJ being all believers, and like even the three of us differ in terms of like what that looks like. I would say like, you know, or how even how this band is used as a tool. Like we use it differently, and so I think like faith is huge. I think for me personally, like the lyric, it's just like it's hard to do anything in my life without having faith be incorporated into it, because it is like kind of the biggest part of it. And so like he said, like the lyrics will probably always have some element of faith to them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like I am like a super like going to the shows and like trying to even necessarily even evangelize. Like sometimes I'm just there to hang out. We talk all the time. Like our phrase is like, honestly, I'm just trying to rock, and like that's like kind of our like mantra as like a core group. Like we're just trying to get out there and like do something that we feel like is worthwhile of our time and energy. And I think as a byproduct, people identify that something is like different. Something is different with this band. Not necessarily in terms of like our songs. Like we're not reinventing anything. Like we try to be uniquely us. But like you said, As Cities Burn. Like there are bands that sound like us before us. So, but when we're up there, like I have also been told, like I feel I feel the spirit whenever you guys are on stage. Like that means a lot to me. Like that's super cool. Like that they feel that. But I've also been told, the classic, "Hey, good set." Like afterwards, and it just kind of ends there, and like, hey, that's cool too. Like I'm cool with whatever, and I think JJ said it great. Like we just want to be a safe space, for lack of a better word, like where people can come and like get to know us, and we can get to know them and hear their stories, and it's truly experience like what I feel to be like an authentic sort of community with people that listen to us. Because I don't think we'll ever be that band that like gets on stage, plays, and then you don't see them the rest of the night. Like I want to always have that hopefully we're on a trajectory where we play much bigger shows, but that's just so that way I can meet more people. That's kind of like what I would like to do. Yeah. So
yeah, and the way that we carry ourselves, I always try to use the word like accessible, to where like I don't want people to feel like any spectrum of like intimidated or nervous or whatever to talk to us. Like I'm just a simple dude. Like yeah, like we're in a band and all this stuff, and I don't want people that are either Christian or not Christian or whatever to not want to come hang out and have like a relationship with us. Like literally in my simplest form, I'm just like a dude that likes barbecue and hockey. Like I come talk to me about that. If Jesus comes up, we can have a conversation about Jesus. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like, and I think meeting people where they're at and like, connecting with them on deeper levels is what's more important. And that starts, just being yourself. And I think that's one of the pros that this band has, is that we're just like literally just out there being ourselves. So,
yeah, I think that was always something when I was younger. I was shy when I was younger, but whenever I would get to go see shows, I would always be kind of nervous to go talk to anybody in the bands. But I think as I got older, I'm just like, even the biggest bands, it's like everybody's just a human being. Like,
yeah.
I mean, some are more humble than others, but yeah, it would be fun to come up to a show and I can be like, "Hey, JJ, how did Nashville do in the playoffs this year?"
Let's not talk about that.
Oh, that's messed up.
I mean, I can say that because my team didn't even make the playoffs. So.
Hey, I mean, I'm a pretty open book, but there's some boundaries to this,
That's great.
Oh man.
So I just wanted to ask, I know it's probably about time. It's been about an hour, and I thank you guys for giving up your time. I just wanted to ask real quick. So Blurred Visions, that came out back in, I believe, October or November, so it's been out a bit, but there might be people listening to this who haven't heard it yet. So I want to just ask you guys, what is one thing that you want people to walk away with after listening to this album? And for those that haven't heard it, what do you want them to keep in mind going into their first listen?
Yeah. So I would say, so those that have heard it, I guess like, that's a hard question, actually. Let me think a little bit about it. So it's
all right. I can run my mouth if you
got something. Go ahead, because
okay. So first of all, the people that have heard it, thank you. Literally, like we ended up writing these songs and stuff like that, like working on them in a warehouse. Like And then we ended up getting to craft them together in a really, really cool like studio. But like, you know, it means a lot to us that people take the time to actually dig into what we've been creating. So, yeah, just to like keep it short and sweet, like thank you for like actually caring about what we're doing and, you know, where we're moving forward from there. So,
and can I quickly add, as somebody who, like, when I first heard it, it was a great album. But I think I've heard it 4 or 5 times now, and every time it's grown on me more and more. Like, I listened to it earlier today, and I was sitting in the truck that I work in, and I'm just rolling down the highway and hearing these songs. I'm just like, man, like, it's so good. And I would suggest, don't just listen to like the singles or the popular songs. Listen to the whole thing all the way through, because every track is great, and some of the deep cuts, like the non-single ones, are like really good, and
that's,
some of the best
you know,
songs,
that's how we crafted it too. Like I don't think we don't approach music writing it trying to get that like one hit that's going to get like radio play and like Spotify playlists and all that. Like, you know, that's nice, but you know, we really wanted to put out a full body of work that completely embodies like what we have to offer, like as a band.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of what Chris said, sorry, real quick, is that to people who might be listening to it for the first time, sorry, I can't speak. I'm ashamed to say the first time I listened to it, I was not the biggest fan. Like, I knew it was good, but I didn't connect with it first. And so I should maybe say that I didn't connect with it, not that I wasn't the biggest fan. I know when you guys dropped pre-orders for it, No Turning Back was the first single, and I was like, oh, this is like the best song ever. It sounded similar to Cement, which was my favorite song off of the previous EP. So at that point, I actually, or I guess from that point on till release day, I didn't listen to any of the other singles. I was like, this album I can tell is going to be special, so I want to go into it having not heard anything. But I think because I only listened to that song, I was expecting 10 songs that sounded like No Turning Back. So I had to listen to it more and more, and it grew on me to the point where it was literally my album of the year. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, you guys aren't the first that like I've heard that a lot, and you know, I don't know how that like really makes me feel. Like it not necessarily like but so many people have said that it's like, you know, in some ways it also is kind of like how we are as a band. Like, I would say that with each record we have gotten better, and that's, you know, that's what every band wants. Like, we're not like the greatest at our instruments or at our crafts. We're just dudes that like music, and we write what we want to hear, what we think sounds cool in the moment. And like, sometimes that doesn't hit and sometimes it does. But like, I will say from every record we've gotten better, and we want to continue that trend as we keep writing. And so it only makes sense to me that also reflects in people's list. Like, when they listen through it, like multiple people have said every time they've listened to it, it has gotten better and they like it more and more and more. And so to me, like, if anything, it's like, well, this is going to maybe like stand the test of time. Like, people are going to keep listening to it, you know? And that's what you want. You know, I don't want somebody who's going to listen to it one time, think, okay, that was cool, but like, yeah, it's all right, and then never revisit it. Like, I want you to keep giving it a shot. And I guess like that would be one thing that I was actually even thinking to answer your question about people who haven't heard it. Like, just give it a shot. Like, I think a lot of times, like, you might hear a song that you maybe don't, you know, don't resonate with super tight right away. And but like, if you're a band like us, like, we don't write, like he said, we're not writing a song hoping that it'll hook you. Like, we're writing an entire front to back that is supposed to try to come together and be something that, you know, means something to us first. I mean, if it means something to other people, great, but it has to mean something to us first. And so, yeah, if you haven't listened to it, just give it a shot. If you don't like it, as you've heard, give it another shot, and then a third shot. And then you will
at
like
least
it.
3.
And then if you don't like it after that, get some new ears.
Yeah. If you're still not into it, then we're not for you, and that is okay. Like, I don't
Just
need it.
make sure you buy a T-shirt and the record like on vinyl first, and
There you
then
go.
you can say you don't like us.
Yeah.
There you go.
You
Buy a
put the
record to
dough
burn it
into
because you
you're
hate
gonna-
it so much.
You're going to be invested.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's great. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on to the Kingdom Core podcast. It was a real pleasure to meet with you guys, talk with you guys, and to have you guys on here. And I hope that some new people go and check out your music. And yeah, go and support Idle Threat. Go and check out their merch. We'll have links and all that stuff.
Do you guys want to plug anything real quick? You guys are going on tour. You got social medias, merch, any of that?
Yeah. We got all the tours we mentioned earlier, but if you're one of those weirdos that skips to the end of a podcast for some reason and you didn't hear it, we're playing along the East Coast, starting in Charlotte on Monday, which I don't even know. What's that, the 16th? No.
I think this is probably going to come out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, so
we'll be on tour.
We're on tour.
Yeah.
And we're going, like he said, up to New York and over to like the Chicago area. So we'll be doing that, and then catch us this summer at Audio Feed, and then down in Florida with Emory, and over on the West Coast with Norman Jean and Emory, and then Furnace Fest in September. And then also we plan on doing our, we didn't really talk about it here, but that's okay, because we haven't done it in a while, but we do our own festival called Threat Fest, and hopefully the plan is to do that later on in the year. So keep an eye out for
Very
that.
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
thanks for having us.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Kingdom Core podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for either listening or watching, for all the support over the last 15 episodes. We're getting up there. It's exciting to see this collection of interviews form. We just want to give a special shout out to the core givers over on our Patreon page: Aaron Peter, Jonathan Lyman, Tiffany Cadenhead, Anthony Kuchma, and the Dead Pedal Coffee Company. Thank you so much for all your support. It's absolutely amazing. You can go to patreon.com/KingdomCore Podcast or follow the links either in our bios on Instagram or the link tree that's linked somewhere in the show notes. Go check out the perks over there. You guys can get early access, come in to our private Facebook group and chat with us. And we're hoping to get kind of like a quarterly Zoom call with all of you scheduled sometime in the near future. A little bit of a busy time for all of us, so it's hard to get that going, but we want to do that. We want to chat with you guys and hear your thoughts on the podcast. We'll talk about faith and metal and rock, and it'll be a good time. Give this podcast a rating wherever you're listening to. Spotify now has ratings, as well as Apple Music. Leave a review on Apple Music. We love reading those. It's so fun. Maybe we will read some in the near future as just a fun little segment. And lastly, you guys can go follow us over on Instagram. You can follow me at @4.the.rock, and you can follow Sean's page, Kingdom Core. You guys know it, kingdom.core on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit subscribe on that video. It'd be awesome to have you as part of the For the Rock family. Come check out some of the other videos as well. Thank you to Idle Threat. Thank you, Tooth and Nail Records. It's awesome to have these guys in the scene and this absolutely amazing album, Blurred Visions. Go and listen to it, and stay tuned for another awesome episode coming up soon, and many more in the near future.